watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Palestinian government stresses to take all international legal measures to respond to the Israeli occupation's measures against the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque. And the Russian ceasefire comes into force today, with Kyiv rejecting the move as a trick. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. Within the activities of the Royal Oman Police's celebration of its annual day, January the 5th, and the graduation of courses of officers, His Excellency Lieutenant General Hassan bin Mohsen Al-Shariqi, Inspector General of Police and Customs, presided over today the ceremony of handing over the academic certificates to the graduate officers. His Excellency honored the first graduating officers, then handed over academic certificates to the graduating officers, as well as the officers and trainers supervising the training of the graduating batches of officers. The event was attended by a number of Royal Oman Police senior officers and members of the teaching and training staff at the Sultan Qaboos Academy for Police Sciences. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas stressed that his government will continue to take all legal measures provided by international legitimacy to respond to the Israeli occupation's measures against the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque. During the meeting of the Executive Committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the Palestinian president made it clear that the Israeli incursions into the Al-Aqsa Mosque cannot be tolerated, indicating that the Palestinian movement will continue in all international events to prevent the occupation from implementing its programs that target Al-Aqsa and the Palestinian land, adding that the Palestinians will confront the occupation's attempts to build and expand the illegal settler colonialism. A unilateral ceasefire in Ukraine declared by Russian President Vladimir Putin officially came into force today, but the hours leading up to the truce saw renewed fighting, with Kyiv rejecting the move as a trick. Putin ordered Russian troops to cease fire from midday in response to a call for a Christmas truce from the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, a close Putin ally. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky rejected the ceasefire and called it a trick. His advisor said Russia must leave the occupied territories, only then will it have a temporary truce. U.S. President Joe Biden suggested the ceasefire officer was a sign of desperation. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said today the European Union should objectively and fairly take stock of China's epidemic situation. The Foreign Ministry spokeswoman said that there should be no discriminatory practices, let alone political manipulation. EU government officials recommended on Wednesday that passengers flying from China to member state countries show a negative COVID-19 test prior to boarding. More countries around the world are demanding that visitors from China take COVID tests days before it drops border controls next Sunday and ushers in an eagerly awaited return to travel for a population that has been largely stuck at home for 3 years. A massive Pacific storm unleashed high winds, torrential rains, and heavy snow across California for a second day yesterday, knocking out power to tens of thousands of homes and disrupting road travel with flash floods, rock slides, and toppled trees. At least 2 fatalities have been reported since Wednesday, one of them a toddler killed by a fallen redwood crushing a mobile home in Northern California. In Santa Cruz, coastal properties were plummeted and at least 1 bridge and 1 pier were severely damaged. Asian investors struggled today to maintain the week's positive momentum as they eyed sharp losses on Wall Street that came after forecast-beating jobs data suggested the Federal Reserve will have to keep lifting interest rates. Asian markets were mixed after all 3 main indexes on Wall Street fell more than 1%. Still, There is a general sense of optimism in Asia as China emerges from almost 3 years of zero COVID lockdowns and another strict containment measures. This has helped cause a slump in oil prices as investors bet on a drop in demand from the world's biggest importer of the commodity. Both main contracts rose today, but are both down almost 10% on the week. The West Texas Intermediate rose by 1% to reach $74.38 per barrel. The Brent North Sea crude rose by 0.9% to reach $79.40 per barrel. Still to come in our news bulletin. Impacts of low trough system start over the northern parts of the Sultanate of Oman. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The Sultanate of Oman's national football team will begin its matches today in the 25th Arabian Gulf Cup. Our national team will meet the Iraqi team in the opening match at 8 p.m., preceded by the opening ceremony of the championship competitions in the Iraqi governorate of Basra. The GCC tournament will be held in the Iraqi province of Basra and will continue until the 19th of January, with the participation of 8 teams divided into 2 groups, from which the first and second teams qualify for the semi-finals. Branko Ivankovic, coach of Oman national football team, said during the press conference held yesterday, the Gulf Cup is an enthusiastic and exemplary tournament, and they enter the tournament with very high ambition, with respect for all opponents, as they all have the ambition to win the title. An introductory seminar was held in the governorate of Musandam under the title Rural Product, which aims to empower the capabilities of rural women in fields related to production, marketing, and manufacturing. The seminar was held in cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Water Resources, which aims through such programs and workshops to support the rural women and their projects, as well as their market products on the domestic and international levels. The Oman Development Bank also supports the rural women through funding and financial sustainability for the rural women projects. In the governorate of Al Buraymi, the youth committee in Al Nahda Club concluded the cultural creativity competition. It aimed to highlight the youth talents as well as to work on developing them, in addition to instill the spirit of competitiveness among the participating teams. The competition included a number of fields, namely traditional poetry, digital designing, sports commentary, musical and fine arts, short films, photography, and theater. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Youth advances forward with the programs that serve the interests and aspirations of the youth. Due to the impacts of the low trough system over the northern parts of the Sultanate of Oman, a number of wilayas in the governorate of Musandam witnessed rains with varied intensity, which led some wadis and their tributaries to overflow. Here are some pictures of the rains. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Palestinian government stresses to take all international legal measures to respond to the Israeli occupation's measures against the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque. And the Russian ceasefire comes into force today, with Kyiv rejecting the move as a trick. With that, we come to the end of tonight's bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night and have an incredible weekend.